I'm now joined on the line from Edinburgh by Mr. Wiliam Moyes, and he's the chairman of the Accounts Commission. Hello, Mr. Moyes.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me.
It's been quite an interesting report that you have compiled. It makes quite a few, perhaps, hard-hitting points. If I can just go to the first one, why have you raised concerns about lack of leadership?
Well, we have observed a number of aspects of how the Council works. One is that there aren't clear overarching priorities to guide the organisation. And in a small council with a smallish staff, this is really quite important so that staff focus on the things that the Council really wants them to focus on. And then we also observe that there isn't a medium-term financial plan that guides how the Council is going to allocate its resources in the future and how it's going to improve its services. And that, we think, is absolutely essential for all councils. And the business that gets to committees of the Council pardon me, is really quite operational. And that's fine. That needs to be, operational issues need to be dealt with. But there needs to be a strategic framework within which decisions on operational issues can be taken. So those are the kind of things that make us concerned about whether the leadership is really strong enough in the Council.
Now, when you say leadership, I have looked at the report, I don't remember the detail. Are you saying lack of leadership among the elected members or among the senior officers or which of them?
Well, the elected members have a real important role to play in leading the Council. They set the overall strategy, they set the objectives, they monitor delivery, and where necessary, they intervene. And those are things that we don't see operating as effectively as we think ought to operate in the Council. But there's no doubt that officers also have a part to play. I mean, they have to make sure that their planning and their decisions on resourcing and so on are clear and are set within the framework set by elected members.
Is this an issue that you say can only be fixed with training, for example?
It's partly training and debate within the Council. It's partly, I think, the Council and the officers discussing in some detail what is the overall objective of the Council, what are the priorities, how is finance going to look in the medium term, and what does that mean for how financial resources are going to be allocated and so on. It means discussions that are not just about decisions on individual issues, but wider discussions about how the Council should function and what it should be trying to achieve and whether it's well placed to achieve what it wants.
You have spoken about an increase in dissatisfaction in the last few years. What in particular have you found?
Well, there are a number of issues that have come up in our work. One is the condition of the road system. One is the level of sickness absence in the Council. And there are aspects of social care where service users are not very happy. So those are the kind of things that have been identified.
Is it tardiness and completion of projects and that sort of thing that you're talking about there?
Yes. And delivering the kind of improvements that residents of the Western Isles have told the Council they want. That we think that's very important, to engage residents and to be seen by residents to responding to their concerns.
Now, you've also highlighted the fact that there's been this. I think you call it the smallest real terms increase in support from the Scottish Government. So perhaps some of this is really the fault of the Scottish Government. What do you say to that?
Well, there is no doubt that Western Isles has had to bear the biggest real terms decrease in the funding that it gets compared to other Scottish councils. And I would expect that the Council is lobbying the Scottish Government to rectify that. It has undoubtedly makes life difficult for the Council to deal with that kind of pressure. But on the other hand, there are sources of funding other than the Scottish Government, Crown Estates, for example, and the Council has been quite successful in tapping into these alternative sources of funding, and I'm sure they'll continue to do so.
You've also pointed out that it is not the sort of traditional model of a political Scottish council. Do you think that some of the deficiencies, shall we say, is down to the fact that there isn't that sort of ruling party opposition system, and that may have something to do with what you've put your finger on?
Well, I think it makes running the council a bit more difficult. I can understand why that is how the council operates, and it's not alone in operating in that way. But it means that the attitude that the council will take to specific issues is probably a little less predictable to officers than would be the case in a council that has traditional political parties, where the attitudes of each political party are broadly known and broadly can be predicted. But I wouldn't want to place too much emphasis on this. I mean, the council has a long experience of working in this way, and I think it can be made to work, but they need to work just a bit harder to make sure that officers really do understand what the elected members want. So
some people argue for the current system, saying it just means that that these issues are discussed on their merits rather than taking a party line. Is there anything in that?
Yes, I mean, I can see some advantages, but it also means that it's difficult for officers to be really confident that they know what view the council will take on different issues and what the council's overall objectives are. So I think if the council will continue to operate in this way, I'm sure, and I think what that means is that they need to spend perhaps a little bit more time setting out for officers what the overall views of the elected members are.
Is it in your remit to set a sort of timetable for recovery to address these issues?
Well, yes, in the sense that we will be coming back to audit the council every year. And what we have said to the council is that we think they should produce an action plan to address the issues that we've raised in our report. And the action plan should probably have priorities and timescales. And as part of our annual audit, we would then take into account that action plan and be asking questions about whether the action plan is being delivered in practice or not. So to that extent, yes, we can continue to review the performance of the council and will do so.
And what has been the response from Eilean Siar to your findings?
It's been very positive, and we are very pleased. They have accepted the findings and they have made clear that they intend to follow them up as we suggested. And we think that's a very constructive attitude that they've taken.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Moyes. That's Wiliam Moyes, and he's the chairman of the Accounts Commission. Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me.